All right, testing 1 2 Studio Steve back wrapping up game 5 of the NBA Conference Finals on a Friday night, May the 30th, where there's no basketball happening. I think there's been 2 days within the last like 3 weeks where there hasn't been a game on. Tonight happens to be one of those days. Take a breath, catch your breath. The playoffs have been super exciting from start to now, and it's just getting better because we're on the cusp of the NBA Finals. One team's already punched its ticket to the finals, the OKC Thunder. Let's start there. Game 5, Wolves and Thunder. Just going to read off a couple of stories of the game here, a couple of stat lines, and this pretty much sums up how this game went. The Wolves start the game after the first quarter, shooting 3 for 20, 1 for 9 from 3 with 4 turnovers. Ant-Man had his first basket nearly 6 minutes into the quarter. SGA on the flip side in the first 5 minutes had scored or assisted on every play and ends the first quarter by scoring or assisting on 24 of 26 points for OKC. OKC leads the first quarter 26-9 after 12 minutes, the lowest point total all season, regular season and playoffs for the Wolves. 14 total turnovers in the first half for the Wolves. More turnovers than field goals. That's never a good thing. 14 points off of the turnovers for OKC as well. The 2 stars for the Wolves, Ant-Man finishing the half with 9 points, shooting 3 for 10. Julius Randle, 8 points, shooting 3 of 7. Terrible, right? Things aren't going to go well if that is how your first half starts. On the flip side of that, for the OKC Thunder, their 3 stars, SGA finishes the first half with 20 points on 8 for 14 shooting. Chet finishes with 15 points on 5 of 8, and J-Dub just continues to have an amazing playoff run after Game 7 of the Denver series. Finishes the first quarter with 15 points in the first half, 15 points, shooting 5 of 9. After the first half, in my opinion, you could have just insert the audio clip of former Arizona Cardinals head coach Dennis Green talking about they are who we thought they were. If you remember that far back, and Dennis Green losing his mind, smacking the press conference table, talking about how they are who we thought they were. And that's exactly who OKC came out as. They got their ass kicked by 40 points in this series once, and after that have returned back to the 68-win team that they were all season. Their defense is something to watch. I mean, the hustle, the tenacity, the pressure. Alex Caruso just willing to guard anyone and everyone. At one point, they were substituting Caruso and Hartenstein, so he was coming in directly to guard the 5-man for Minnesota, which in this case was Rudy Gobert. So you got Caruso just willing to do anything and everything, and just the versatility to be able to play all positions. Unbelievable, man. His energy on defense, diving for loose balls, getting into passing lanes, stealing, deflecting. There was that full court sprint, which he had. Naz Reid had a full court fast break, nobody there. He was going to go in for a dunk, and then Caruso just sprints from end to end, catches up to him. Reid sees him out of nowhere and then dribbles a ball off his leg, turnover. Amazing. Just Caruso's everywhere. Their defense was swarming on Randall. He was catching the ball high up at the 3-point line, not anywhere close to the basket where he has a size mismatch against the Thunder defenders. Lou Dort, my God, man, just the Velcro-ness of him on Ant all game, full court pressure, 3-quarter court pressure, 3-point line, wherever he was, wherever Ant went on the floor, somebody from OKC gave him a little smack, gave him a little hit, made sure that he knew someone was there at all times. It's very similar, and I said this earlier, I think on the last podcast as well, very similar to what Houston was doing to Steph Curry in the opening round of that series as well. Just constant pressure. The OKC defense collectively are like the Dementors from Harry Potter. They just suck the fun and the life out of everything you're doing. And it was really evident on the faces of the Wolves players throughout this game, throughout this series. They were just unsure on how to contest and how to match the energy that OKC brings every single game, with the exception of the blowout game in Game 3. OKC in this game, Game 5, forced 21 turnovers. So 21 turnovers, and turnovers were the story of the series, I think, for the Minnesota Timberwolves. OKC also had 14 steals. They opened the game on an 11-3 run. Game was wrapped up pretty early. The Thunder improved to 8-1 at home in the playoffs. The only loss coming to the Wolves in this series. And OKC punches their way to the finals. It's amazing. This unprecedented season of theirs continues. They're 4 games away from the franchise's first title. I'm not counting the 1979 Seattle Supersonics title. If anyone that's been following the NBA knows, or as anyone that's been following the NBA knows, the Seattle Supersonics were turned into the OKC Thunder at some point after drafting Kevin Durant. They won a championship in 1979. I believe Lenny Wilkins was a head coach at that time. We are not counting that title as a part of their franchise. They're going back to the finals. They're seeking out their first title. There's no better opportunity that they've ever had, especially with this lineup and this team that they have, including the MVP, SGA, Canadian content. Shut up, my man. The Timberwolves. Before I talk about the Timberwolves, let me just quickly reiterate exactly what I just said. They lost to the best team in basketball, the team with the best defense all season, the MVP, the best team in the playoffs. The story of the series for the Timberwolves was turnovers, trying to understand how to cope with the pressure of the OKC defense. Speaking of defense, I personally think that the Wolves didn't use the zone defense as much as they could have. I know I sound like a broken record talking about this throughout this series, but it was just something that I felt like they didn't go to, that they could have gone to, that they should have gone to. There were stretches in this game, in game 5, where they did go to the zone, and OKC didn't score a single point, and then they quickly reverted back to man coverage. So just a little wrinkle there to consider as the series is wrapped up. Of course, all eyes are on Anthony Edwards after the series. Julius Randle has been a pretty subpar playoff performer in his career. He started this playoff run fairly well, and then ran into the best defense that just kind of plummeted any success that he previously brought to the playoffs this year. But Ant being the man, Ant being the star, gets the star treatment, so that's why all eyes have turned on him. I don't want to make too many excuses for him, but I do want to highlight the year that he has had. Just in retrospect here, just to kind of give some perspective, he won a gold medal at the Olympics this year. He takes out Luka and LeBron in the first round of the playoffs. He gets to back-to-back conference finals. He leads the league in three-pointers made this season, and he's only 23, right? So, he's accomplished a lot in that short span of time. Of course, I feel like personally he could have done a little bit more. He could have been a little bit more assertive. It doesn't mean he couldn't have been better, but again, he's had a great run. He's 23. He's going to get better. I think knowing the type of player he is, I feel like he's going to put in a lot of work in this offseason. And if I were the rest of the NBA, I would be terrified of how he's going to come back, especially after having these two heartbreaking back-to-back conference losses. Watch out for that motherfucker. A couple of things I did make note of watching Ant this series: his lack of movement off the ball. So, just for him to get the ball was hard enough because of the ball denial pressure with Lou Dort, Caruso, Wallace, whoever was on him. And then when he got the ball, they're just up in his jersey the entire time. Now, when he passed the ball, he kind of just stayed stagnant. That's a problem. If your offensive game isn't working, you've got to find other ways to impact the game. And sometimes those ways, whether it's rebounding, whether it's defensive pressure, whether it's hustle plays, whatever it might be, getting into passing lanes, getting deflections, sometimes those little things that you're doing throughout the course of the game add up. Maybe you get to the free throw line 5-6 times, you start to see the ball go through the hoop, your confidence comes back, you get a bit of a breather as soon as you're getting to the line. So I think that there was a little bit that was left on the court. I feel like Ant could have done a little bit more getting off the ball, getting cuts to the lane, give and goes, whatever it might have been. I just felt like he passed the ball and stood still, and that is just in the hands of OKC. That plays in their favor. They want you to do that. As soon as they've taken Ant out of the possession, now it's up to the rest of the Wolves to make a basket, and clearly that didn't work over the course of the 5 games. So finding other ways to score, getting some rebounds. 2 things that I feel like Ant will develop in the offseason, and if he doesn't, needs to, is a back to the basket post-up game. With his size, with his athleticism, his speed, his footwork, just his attention to detail, I think he is a great creator, of course, off the dribble when he can have space to do it. If he doesn't, got to get a back to the basket game. Jordan had one, Kobe had one, all the greats have one. Dirk Nowitzki is amazing, right? Of course, with his size, it was impossible to defend his fadeaways, and I think that Ant has all the right pieces, that if he gets a fade game or he gets something going on in the post, he's going to be incredibly difficult to guard because he has everything else. He's got the downhill game, he's got the aerial game, he's got the three-point shooting game. I think if he develops a mid-range in the sort of back to the basket game over the summer, with his hops and his speed and his agility, gives him an advantage over every defender in the league in a one-on-one setting. So we'll see what he does. Back-to-back years, like I say, last year he took out KD, Jokic. Not to mention that game 7 that they won on the road in Denver, down 20 points entering the fourth quarter. Like, this is the team that came back and did it. Granted, they had Cat last year, but like, this is the same core team that came back and did it. And then they went to the conference finals again. So sometimes you got to have that sourness. You've got to have that loss. You got to have that defeat that really binds and brings everyone together and takes them forward. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do in the offseason collectively as a group, and then how they're going to rebound coming into it next year. If we remember, they entered this season having made a blockbuster trade like days before training camp. So they didn't really have a full season under their belt. They didn't have a training camp under their belt. I think that this team is going to look a lot better next year. I think Ant is going to look better this year, and that's saying a lot because he had an amazing year this year. So let's see what happens next year. He's on his way. They will be fine. Last thing I want to say about the Wolves, kind of in retrospect here, I still believe that they should have kept Cat on the team and ran it back this year. There is such a lack of continuity within teams in the NBA now, with players jumping every year, with coaches getting fired, new systems being implemented. Cat and Ant had developed such a great friendship on and off the court, and they developed such a great style together on the court that they were playing amazing together. And the fact that they broke that up still kind of boggles my mind. I understand why they did it with financial constrictions, and they felt like they didn't want to pay Cat all that money, so on and so forth. Well, guess what? They're faced with the exact same situation now going into this offseason. Naz Reid, Alexander Walker, they've got guys to pay. They're going to look at Julius Randle again. So they're going to have to spend money either way. I think the team they had last year really had solidified and figured something out, and then they break that apart. Yeah, they went back to the conference finals. I think with Cat on this team, it could have been a bit of a different story. I'm not saying they would have beat the OKC Thunder. Maybe they put up a better game. Who the hell knows what would have happened? But anyways, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with some of their supporting cast members moving into the summer and next season. Whoo, real quick, let's talk Pacers and Knicks. MSG, right? One of the most difficult places to play in professional sports, the Mecca. Game 5 was exactly what I think most people expected, in the sense that New York would come out with all the desperation in the world with their season on the line. Jalen Brunson carried them again, 32 points. He's the first player since Allen Houston in 1999 to score 30 points on 65% field goal shooting. This is part of the reason why he is like the mayor of New York, why he can't do anything wrong in New York. I'm sure this guy will never pay for another meal for the rest of his life in the city of New York. He's just a tremendous leader. Cat, again, had a great game. Speaking of Cat, he had a great game, 24 points, 13 rebounds. The Knicks had 60 points in the paint to 34 for Indiana. They absolutely dominated the paint. They held the Pacers to 94 points, which is their lowest total this entire season. They also caused 20 turnovers by Indiana, which is also the most turnovers that Indiana has had this season. So you got to credit the defense of New York. The Pacers just couldn't match the intensity of the moment. Closing out a series in MSG, which is rollicking and absolutely nuts, is extremely difficult for any team to do and for any team to overcome. It clearly showed. Tyrese Halliburton, coming off a masterful Game 4 performance, was just swarmed on defense, getting pressure full court. They shaved off, New York's defense shaved off at least 7 seconds of the shot clock for Indiana almost every single possession. Just the full court pressure was doing that, making Tyrese come up slower, which, as we know, anyone that's watched Indiana, pace. They want to run. They want to play with pace. They want to get guys involved on the wings. They weren't able to do any of that. And you got to credit the defensive commitment of the Knicks, taking away the bread and butter of the Pacers in that game. If there's a silver lining for the Pacers, it's got to be the back-to-back impressive games by Benedict Mathurin, who otherwise struggled in the series. And, sometimes you get a couple of these guys off the bench that give you a spark, and that could be the deciding factor. Back-to-back games for Mathurin, scoring 20 points, I think has been a big thing for the Pacers. Just to get a little bit of that extra lift, especially going back home now in a closeout game. Role players play better at home. He's had 2 great road games. So let's see what happens there. Mathurin finished the game with 23 points, 9 rebounds, 9 for 9 from the free throw line. He went 10 of 11 in the previous game in Game 4. He also finished Game 5 with shooting 60% from the field, 6-0. And he did it all in 24 minutes. So 23 points, 9 rebounds, 9 free throws, 60% shooting in 24 minutes. Pretty damn impressive. Shout out again, Benedict Mathurin, another Canadian in the playoffs. I expect all of these anomalies that happened with the Pacers to not transfer over into Game 6, heading back into Indiana. I expect Gainbridge Fieldhouse to be absolutely a zoo and super loud from start to finish. A Pacers win would put them back in the NBA Finals for the first time in 25 years. And let me just say, the Pacers Thunder Finals matchup is something I've been praying to the basketball gods for since the playoffs started. That can be validated and backed by Sandeep Johal, my man of Desi Method, who I've told this to repeatedly since the playoffs started. It's like, man, if we can just get both of these teams in the finals, it will be so fun. They mirror each other in a lot of ways. They play with such pace. They play with such intensity. They play with such a deep bench on both sides. They have superstars on both sides, emerging players on both sides, young teams, like great coaching. It would just be a fantastic finals. Not taking anything away from the Knicks. Just don't really care for them. I'm sorry, Knicks fans. But I would love to see the Pacers and Thunder in the finals. I guess we'll find out on Saturday night if that comes to fruition. Game 6 in Indiana. We are slowly getting towards the end of the playoff march here. June 5th marks the opening night of the NBA Finals. We know that the Thunder are there. Tomorrow night, we'll find out whether or not Indiana can punch its way there. And if not, it will go back to MSG for Game 7. And let me say this, that is the last place Indiana wants to be. If Indiana does not close this game out in Game 6, going back to MSG for Game 7, it's a fucking death sentence. And I don't think they will have much success or much fun going back there. Granted, they won in Game 7 in MSG last year. Tyrese Halliburton hit a game-winning shot. Anything is possible. If there's anything that we've learned about this series and the Indiana Pacers, this playoff run, anything is possible. Who knows what will happen? Game 6 runs tomorrow night, Saturday in Indiana. Tune in. I'm out of breath just talking about this. And the series has been wild. The playoffs have been wild. I've loved every minute of it. I hope you have as well. We'll catch up after Game 6 in Indiana, and we'll see what the result is. We'll see if we have a finals matchup, or we'll see if we have the two best words in professional sports, Game 7. Studio Steve, signing out. I hope you all have a great weekend. Peace out for now.